I want to say that over these last few weeks, what we've wanted to communicate more than anything is that we have a Father who loves us so much more than we can imagine. Even the best earthly mum or dad is a pale shadow of how amazing this Father is. Love personified. Just faithfulness to the core. Utterly so strong, he can utterly protect us. And the second thing, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's so important, is that if we take the risk of opening up our hearts to this Father, he can point out to us the wounds that we don't even know we've got. And I'm not talking about poking around for the sake of it. That's not what we're into. But he can show us the ways that we've got defensive behaviors. We've got reservoirs of anger. We've got funny things that we do and we're not quite sure why. And he can point that out and he can say, come on close, let me heal you. But you have to take the risk and say, okay, here I am. But it's so, so worth it. And he can bring not just healing, but with treasure. And I have a very, very dear friend who had a breakdown many years ago, it's decades ago, and she became severely depressed. And although she held on to Jesus, she couldn't cope with church gatherings. And we prayed very early on, a small group of us. And as we prayed, we got a picture and a promise for her. And the picture was that she was at the depths of the ocean, wrapped in chains, but there was treasure all round her. And the promise was that as she was set free, and she would be set free, she was going to whoosh out of the sea like a Bond girl, carrying treasure. Well, as I say, decades went by. Eventually, she moved to this area and she came on one of the schools and was utterly transformed. She met the Father. She got hope. She got some healing. Well, then a year later, she came again. And as someone was speaking, she was reminded of a memory and she realized she'd been cursed. So she knew she had to. She grabbed someone, a very dear friend, to pray with her. And as this person prayed, she broke the curse. And this lady was going like this. She said, I'm breaking off the ropes. I'm breaking off the chains. She knew nothing of the picture. And my friend was set free. She was absolutely set free. You see, the curse was broken, the chains came off, and the treasures that were promised are coming thick and fast. She's receiving the love from the Father and from her new church family and the love that she's able to give out in abundance. And I've got my friend back. It's an amazing testimony, and it took a long time. The process was long. And if that resonates with you at all, I would grab it now. Grab that promise for yourself. He promised healing. He promises healing with treasures. Oh. And I want us to look today. I thought I forgot to say what the title was. I want to talk about coming home to the Father. And inevitably, I'm thinking of the prodigal son. It's not just a story in the Bible. This is our story. This is a story about you and me. And we could call it the parable of the prodigal son. We can call it the parable of the prodigal father. So lavish is he. Lavish in his love, excessive in his forgiveness, and in the gifts that he's promising us. You know the story. two sons and the father. And the younger son comes to the father and says, I'd like my inheritance now. Outrageous. It's like wishing his dad was dead. And the people listening to Jesus at the time would have expected the next bit of the story to say, so the father slapped his son around the ears and kicked him out of the house and said, not on your life. But he didn't. Jesus said the father gave him freedom. He gave him what he asked. He gave him the choice. Like God's done right from the word go, we've always got the choice. And the eldest son is a bit quiet. He would have been expected to defend his dad and also box his younger son's ears, but he didn't. And so we're told the inheritance gets divided. The younger one cashes it in and goes off to Ibiza for a wild time of parties and whatever. But he runs out of money, and he runs out of friends, and he runs out of food, and he ends up the lowest of the low, a hired hand feeding the pigs with not even a bacon butty for himself. And we're told that eventually he comes to his senses, realizes there has to be a better way, remembers a bit of what his dad was like and decides he'll throw himself on his father's mercy. And so as he sets off on the journey, he's rehearsing his speech, oh, I've sinned, I've been so bad, I'm not worthy. And the father's watching for him. I wonder how long. I would imagine that every day he's scanning the horizon for his son. Because Jesus says, while he was still a long way off, the father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. And he's running partly because when this younger son disgraces his father, he actually disgraces the whole village. So they might have been ready to lynch him. And his dad is running as much to protect him as to welcome him home. And he's moved with compassion, and he falls on his neck and he covers him with kisses. It's not just a welcome home. He's covering him with kisses. He's lavish, despite the smell of the pigs. I wonder what we smell like sometimes. But he's moved with compassion, and he gives his son three things. And the first thing that he gives his son is the robe. It says, and he sent for the best robe. And that would have been his own, the father's robe that was saved for special celebrations. And it was a long robe, a luxurious thing it was suggesting status and honor. And he covers his son with the robe. It's like he's covering the sins of his young son with his long robe. Well, we're given honor too, because we're his, just because we're his. It's nothing to do with us, it's everything to do with Jesus. It's everything to do with Jesus. And sometimes, maybe it's just me, I used to slide into trying to please him, trying to get more brownie points, trying to make him notice me, love me more. There's nothing we can do to make him love us more. And there's nothing we can do to make him love us less. That's just it. We're his kids. We have honor without doing a thing. You remember Jesus' baptism, he came up out of the water, and at that moment, heaven was opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him, I'm really, really, really pleased." That was a public declaration of heaven's approval, and Jesus hadn't done a miracle yet. And then Jesus prays in John 17, that we would know the same love and the same honor. We have 4 grandchildren. Well, we have 3 children who are adored. We have 4 grandchildren who are loved, taken pride in, boasted about regularly. Dawn was telling me where's Dawn? She has a great niece. And she said, I'm in love. And I looked at a picture and I said, she's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, Dawn is utterly biased in her favour. Well, fair enough. The father's utterly biased in our favour. Our youngest granddaughter is 4 months old. She has not done a lot in this life. She has produced a lot of dirty nappies, a lot of noise, a few smiles. But we love her to bits. We would lay down our lives for her. Which is kind of what God did, hey? Hey. Before we've done a thing, we have the Father's honour. Whatever mess we're in now or have been, we have his honour. He's going, that's my girl. That's my boy. I love him. I love them. The Father gave his Son also a ring, a signet ring like his credit card. Bit risky, you'd think, in the circumstances. But the ring represents his trust and the authority to transact business in his name. So he's reinstating the Son into the family and into the family business as well. Slaves don't get told what the master's up to, but the Father tells his sons and daughters. We're told that Jesus only ever did what he saw the Father doing. And he knew that because he spent time with his Abba, and he looked and he listened. And we can do the same. I had a picture a while ago, and there was a palace, and in front of the palace there was a wide set of steps. And I was standing there, and I was dressed in a gorgeous gown and cloak. I was standing there, and there were various others, and I knew they were my brothers and sisters, spaced out, but on these steps. And the king came out of the palace, the Father, and he came to me, and he just whispered in my ear. And whatever he'd said, I just stretched my arm out and declared it. And another time he did it, and I just went where he told me to go. No questions asked. I was to do his bidding, and I knew it, and that was my joy. But I knew that I was royalty. I knew I was in his family. We're all on those steps. We're all dressed in gorgeous robes. And the Father is coming and whispering to us because we have this authority to be about our Father's business. There is so much more to this adventure than we could imagine. I think for some of us today, it's a stepping into a new realm of authority. I think some of us need to receive that ring. Or maybe we've had it before and we've put it down and we need to have it again. It says in Romans 8, the creation is waiting in eager longing, eager anticipation, on tiptoes waiting to see the children of God revealed and walk out in their authority. As we're healing, as we're making declarations, as we're praying, we're doing it in his authority. You know, when I was standing on those steps, I could see we were all standing confident, tall. We weren't cowed by anything because the Father's at our side, whispering, telling us what to do. So a robe, a ring, and then he gets the sandals. Because he's not a slave, he's a son, and the Father wants to make it really clear, no, this is my boy, this is my son. He's not a slave in my house, he's not a servant. He's a free person and a full member of the family. We're sons too. I don't have a problem being a son. You get all the inheritance. So, Galatians chapter 4, verse 4. Just listen to this. God sent his Son born of a woman, born under law, to redeem those under law, that we might receive the full rights of sons. God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son. And since you are a son, God has made you an heir. It's not a co-heir. You know, a co-heir would be 50-50, but we're a joint heir. We get 100%. We all get 100%. Joint heirs. So, yes, we serve. Of course we serve. But we don't serve as slaves. We serve as royal sons and daughters, because that's our identity. We serve like the late Queen. In a speech she made on her 21st birthday in South Africa, she said, I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service. She served as royalty. That is how we're to serve. We're not groveling. We can stand tall. Robe, ring, sandals. Whoa. Hey. We could stop there, but there's a final bit to the story. We need to talk about the older brother. The younger brother insults his dad in the first place by asking for the money, but the older brother at the end insults in a different way. He's making his way back from the field. He hears the music, and he would have known the music was a sign of a celebration. But he doesn't go into the house and say, hey, what's going on? He asks a servant. And then he got angry and refused to go in and celebrate. He got a bad case of offense, jealousy, and self-righteousness. You never even let me have a goat. You know, he says that, but at the beginning of the story it says the father divided the inheritance between the two sons. He is not without. He could have bought a goat for himself. The father is so compassionate, though. Shows his love and compassion for both his sons, for the one who went off the rails and the one who was keeping all the rules, hiding his dissatisfaction, trying to prove his worth through performance. I've tried that quite a lot, really. I'm a rule keeper by nature, so I can behave very, very well. I can be very good. And before I knew all this, I remember well sitting in church. Oh, this is a bit embarrassing. Sitting in church, and I like to worship, so I'm worshiping thinking, I wonder if God's liking the way that I'm doing this. I'm doing it very well. If anybody else is noticing how well I'm doing this. If you gave me a rule, I would keep it. And I would look down on those people that weren't keeping it. There was a time when I was just feeling very fed up of being up and down, of being full of joy and secure in the Lord one day, and the next being full of doubts and feeling a miserable worm. And I remember journaling about this and saying, I'm fed up with this. Why can't I just get it all, get this message, do it right, do it perfectly? That's what I wanted, really. I just wanted to do it all right. So I wrote this out in my journal and said, I want my heart to have a crystal clear ring to it of perfection. I don't think I said that bit, but as I wrote it, I thought, oh dear, there's something that doesn't sound right about this. And the father very gently, he's so kind, he very gently pointed out that he was big enough to cope with doubt. And he was big enough to cope when I felt sad. And he said to me, you don't need to measure your faith. You don't need to measure your behavior. You do need to open your heart up and let me heal from the inside. Heal every part of you, every thought, every wobble, every part. I love you. And this is what he said. Being true to who you are is more important to me than anything. I hate religion. He said that, not me. I want your life to have a crystal clear ring to it because you're being authentic. No pretense, no hiding, no performance. We don't need to. We actually can be who he's created us to be. And as we let him heal us, our behavior will change. As we let him heal us. But he wants us the whole time to be ourselves. The glorious people that he's made us to be, the glorious sons and daughters. Change comes from the inside out. So we're on a bit of a journey, all of us. And some of us will find we've made gains in one area, but we're finding other things a bit of a struggle. And then other of us, it might be the other way around. Oh yeah, I can cope with that bit, but don't really like that bit. There isn't a pecking order. It's not as if we're all marked out of 100 and given a percentage. I used to think that when you got to heaven, I would be at the door, peeking in, looking at all the really holy and spiritual ones who were much closer, higher at the table next to Jesus. It's not the case. I don't think like that anymore because I'm his favourite. We're all sons and daughters. We're all his favourites, and we're all learning. You know, we're learning like the prodigal son. He got home. Well, then he had to start learning how to be a son. We may have come home, and we're still learning how to be sons and daughters. Learning intimacy. Learning dependence, whatever's going on, learning to depend, learning to be secure in who he's made us to be. So we don't have to be jealous of anyone. We don't have to criticize people who don't do it like us because we're secure in who we are. Favorites. Learning to come as a little child and hold on to his hand. And that's an ongoing journey. You know, we may have got lots of our wounds healed, but life goes on. Stuff happens. People will be people. And the world can suddenly change. And wobbles come. And we need to learn to walk with Daddy. My mum died a long, long time ago. Weirdly, as I was writing this, I thought, oh, today's the anniversary. How weird is that? It was when I was a young mum and I didn't know the father. And I muddled my way through the whole grief process. Well, many years later, or more recently, my dad died during COVID. And it was a tough time, the hospital visiting, the caring for him at home with all those restrictions, and he was in Wales and I was in England, and it was very hard. But this time, I knew my heavenly Daddy was with me. So as he got ill, as he was in hospital, he died, the funeral, life without him, I knew that I was looked after. Father promised me right at the beginning that I was held, that Father, Son, and Holy Spirit had me. I was in the middle. And that I would not be overwhelmed. So during all of that time, I kept going back to my Papa, my Abba, to weep, to shout, to complain, and to be comforted, which I was every time. He kept saying to lean in and to drink and to breathe in Holy Spirit. I had a picture of it like when I was in labour, 3 kids, lots of labour, and breathing in gas and air to help you through the pain. And he said, breathe in Holy Spirit. It'll help you through the pain. It works. Completely different experience for me. And whilst I'm left with memories and photos of my parents, I'm never going to be left with just a memory of my heavenly daddy. He's there the whole time. I have never felt like an orphan. That's interesting, isn't it? Mum and Dad have gone, but I never felt that. I've still got a parent who was taken to calling me by the name that my dad used to call me. I only share that to tell you how good he is. I don't think we have a hope of loving each other, honouring each other, the church being one, living in unity, let alone loving the rest of the world, unless we first have this rooting and grounding in the Father's love. It's foundational. It's the security we need for all the rest of it. It undergirds everything. It's not just an extra bit. Oh, today we'll learn about this add-on. It's right at the bottom. It means that we don't wobble in all those different circumstances because we're holding on to his hand. And we know that it's going to be okay. We love because he first loved us. You can't give away what you haven't got. So I want to finish with John 17 and Jesus' prayer in the garden. He says, Father, I have made you known to them. Oh, that's those that you have given me. And will continue to make you known in order that the love you have for me may be in them. He's going to continue to make the Father known to us because that's why he came, to show us the way, to do all that was necessary. I'm going to continue to make you known in order that the love you have for me may be in them. And some of us maybe need to come home into the Father's embrace for the first time. Some of us, I think, are being called deeper into sonship or daughterhood. And maybe it's coming home in a particular aspect of our hearts or our lives. Perhaps it's to explore the Father's home more, to explore the Father, to get greater revelation. But I know that for each one of us, he wants to do something in moving us forward closer, deeper into his embrace, so that we can look in his eyes and see, oh my goodness, that amazing look that he has. So I wonder if we can just be quiet and ask Holy Spirit, what's the next step for me on this journey? And then we'll have a pray. So Holy Spirit, I ask for each of us here, would you show us what the next step is? So maybe you'd like to open your hands. I know for some of us, it's to receive the spirit of sonship. And if you're happy to pray that, let's all say that. Father, I receive the spirit of sonship. Father, I receive the spirit of sonship. Wow. And I want to speak his blessing over each one of us, that we would know the honor that he has for us, that we would know the passion that he has for each one of us, that we would maybe see him or just hear him or have that sensation of him coming close and saying, sweetheart, I love you. I love you as you are. I absolutely love you as you are. I love the way I made you. Oh my goodness. You're irresistible. Absolutely gorgeous. So Holy Spirit, would you take that truth really deep into our hearts right now? And I have the sense too that some of us need to receive those things from the Father. There was the robe, which was honor. That maybe you need again to receive the honor, to know that you're honored without doing a thing, regardless of what's happened in the past or what's going on now. Some of us need to receive that ring of authority. And I have such a sense that for some of us, this is a going deeper. But it's standing up saying, okay, Father, yeah, whatever you've got, I want to do it. I want to hear that whisper. And I will be obedient to be about your business. And then some of us need the sandals, the identity that says, I'm not a slave. I'm not a skivvy. I'm a son. I'm a daughter. And I just wonder if you can identify with any of those three gifts, would you mind standing? I just have a sense that as you stand, the Father is giving out those things. Come on, there's more authority. I know there is. If you want that ring on your finger, wow, or the robe, or the sandals, it's coming now. Wow. So, Father, I thank you. I thank you for these amazing gifts. And for each one, Father, would you now give that gift? If it's the robe, then just take it on your shoulders and receive the honor that he's giving you. You are honored. He's got his hand under your chin to lift your head. Stand tall because you're honored. And if it's the ring, just choose which finger you want that ring on. Hold your hand out, let him put it. You'll see where he puts it. And I bless you to receive that authority. Standing tall. Some of you have got a renewed authority in intercession. That as you pray, stuff is going to happen. Some of you are getting renewed authority in healing. You will say the word. You will say the word and people will be healed emotionally, physically, spiritually. Wow. And if you need the sandals, step into them now. Step into those sandals. You are not a slave. You are a glorious son. You are the joy that Jesus had set before him. You are amazing. Wow. Wow. So receive the Father's blessing now. Wow. As he's blessing you as his children. What an amazing thing it is that we are called the children of God. And that he loves to lavish his love on us. Bring it on, Father. Bring it on more. Yeah. I bless you to receive a greater measure of his love right now. Drink it in. Drink it in. Wow. When we speak all the benefits of drinking that love in, his security. Wow, an awareness of your belovedness. everything that he has. I bless you to receive.